Everyone, it's Mike Nehra, co-founder of Vintage King Audio. It's been a minute. I hope everyone's doing well out there. We're here at Vintage King's new headquarters just out of Detroit, Michigan in our tech shop. This year we'll be celebrating our 30th year anniversary. We're here today because we bought this remarkable collection of gear that takes us all the way back to the beginning of VK, back to day one 30 years ago. We really wanted to be a part of bringing this beautiful package of gear to a new generation of studio owners and engineers and producers. The sheer number of classics is overwhelming, so much so that I wanted to share some of my favorites with you. So first up on our tour, we have these BCM 10s, and they're loaded with some of the modules from the package we just purchased, loaded with vintage Neve 1073s, 1066s, and 1084s. They're known for their full-bodied low end, their assertive mid-range, and their open and airy top end, which is set at 12K. The mids are switchable, and the low end are switchable frequencies, and it has a high-pass filter on the bottom. It's the quintessential vintage mic pre-EQ, known around the world to almost every producer, engineer, and many artists. What's so cool about the 1084, which is a variant of the 1073, is it also has high Q on the mids, allowing you to narrow the Q. And it has switchable top end, so not only does it have the 12K that the 1073 has, it also has 10K, 12K, and 16K. So you can get great air on the vocals, and just it gives you some nice options on the top end. This is a Telefunken U47 that we bought within this package, and it's a short body and with a satin top. It's got the Telefunken badge, which is kind of cool. It has original case, original supply, and original swivel mount. I believe this has a VF14M tube inside, and I think it has a K47 capsule, which tends to be a little more open and brighter sounding than the earlier M7 capsule. When you got closer to the mic, the proximity effect and the bigger than life sound that was created going through it. It's my absolute favorite vocal mic, and I gotta say it's probably a lot of other people around the world's favorite vocal mic. When I bought my first one, it was $900. Now they're in the 20s to upper $20,000 range, which is crazy. But there's only so many of them, and they sound fantastic when you have a nice example. Okay, this is a Neumann U47 FET. It's a solid state version of the Tube 47. Most people love it on a kick drum. It's still tight, not too pillowy, very EQable. There's something about the cardioid pattern. This is a little tighter than that of a U47, so it rejects some of the background noise. So it's really good for that. A lot of people love them on bass, low end of Leslie's, etc. It's just a really versatile, high-end sounding mic that has a lot of great character. Here we have a pair of API 525 compressor limiters, and what's cool about them is while they're simple and they don't have a lot of control, they have a ton of mojo and tone to them. And I personally used to love them on bass guitar because you could slow down the release time. So if you're playing a track with the right tempo and so on, you can get really long release, which was really cool on a lot of bass guitars. They can be very cool on some vocals, some backing vocals, guitars. They give you a bigger sound, and they just give you a uniqueness that I've not heard from a lot of other compressors. What's cool about the vintage 1176F is it had a brightness and presence to its tone that just came off as a nice grit in its overall sound. And it created a really cool musical energy. There's something about the low mids in it when you start to hit the compressor. It just created nice energy in the low mids, and it's just killer on drum rooms, vocals, guitars. It's been used on countless records of all genres, but a lot of great rock stuff has been done with this over the years. But it's just it's real cool. You have you can adjust the input output level. You have attack and release adjustments, and you have switchable ratios with the push buttons. And a popular setting was the British mode, when everybody pushed in all four of the ratio buttons at the same time. It gave an extra something whack to the signal. So here we have the Neve 32264A, and it's what sets it apart from its predecessor. You might know the Neve 2254, the kind of square rectangle shaped ones, is the 2254 was Class A, whereas this is a Class AB unit. And this is faster and a bit cleaner sounding than the 2254. And what's cool, just You can set the compression and the limiting separate, and you can control the release times on both the limiter and the compressor separately as well. It's great for vocals because you can set the compression to your desired level and still limit the vocal to grab your peaks and so forth. You have adjustable ratio, output level, etc. It's just great overall compressor that came in Neve 58, 68, 78, and Neve 88 consoles. And it's usable on almost any instrument and vocal. Here we have a vintage Neumann U87 from the 70s and a vintage Neumann U67 system from the 60s. This mic is it's a little simpler to use. It doesn't have a external supply. It runs off 48 volt Phantom, and where this one you have to have a separate power supply and special mic cable and connector. The 87 is a bit brighter, while this one is a little bit more. The top end's a little bit more rolled off and subtle, and kind of making the energy of the low mids come forward more. So I think on different style of the vocalists, or depending on what you're recording, you might find one or the other useful. Both of them have the exact same polar pattern, a 3-position switch, which has cardioid, omni, and figure 8. And on the rear, they both have a high-pass filter, and they have a pad on each, so you can reduce the volume, the gain of the capsule. Here we have a Universal Audio Vintage 175B, first designed and built, or released, I should say, in 1961. It's smoother, rounder, and less aggressive sounding than 1176. It's definitely has a big sonic footprint, and it makes anything that goes through it comes out sounding more euphonic than what you started with. It's not as adjustable, the attack and release. It's not as fast as 1176, but it's a great unit. Here we have a vintage 70s API 550A and a API 550. The API 550 came out a little earlier than the 550A, is my understanding. And the difference between them is that the 550 has 2 less frequencies on the low end and 2 less frequencies on the top end. They both sound absolutely stunning. Tall, in your face, tight, punchy low end, beautiful, clear in your face mids without being annoying, and just a nice sweet top end. Old Sly Stone, like a lot of 70s funk stuff. Just great. I can't say more about them. They're just great sounding, and I love these. I want to take them with me. Okay, here we have a pair of DBX 160 VUs. Personally, what I loved on these, I loved recording bass guitar, kick, and snare with them, and especially today, if you want to get that sound of tape on your DAW rig, and just a tap, you set the ratio maybe 2-to-1, 3-to-1, and just tap, so you're just hitting this red threshold light and maybe a tick more. It gives you that just a little bit of tape compression feel on the kick and snare. If you want to whack it and get some nice compression on your drum room mics, they do that beautifully because they're very fast, the attack and release on them. Alan Sides, the engineer producer, he was by Vintage King once, and he told him this was his absolute #1 vocal compressor, which I had not personally used it on a ton of, but I would believe him. He loved it, and it's a great piece. Experiment with it, try it on all different things, and let us know how you like it. Here we have a vintage Lexicon PCM 70. These came out in the mid-'80s, and it's a digital effects processor. And it was kind of legendary at the time, for not a ton of money, you can get some great reverb effects, delay effects, halls, plates. It was more of an affordable unit for studios, smaller studios, etc., to be able to bring a high quality sound into their space. And they're still collectible and desirable today, and they have a very unique sound, and even more so in some ways than some of their more expensive big brothers. Here we have a rack of 4 vintage TAB V76 mic pre's. They have 76 dB gain, thus the name V76. They were pretty heavily used in designed in Germany and heavily used in broadcast, etc. And I believe in music consoles as well. But this particular pair looks like they had the previous owner had added output adjustment gain. I've personally have had a lot of experience with these and other variants of the V76, like the S and the M, and they all sound very cool on certain things. definitely had a larger than life tone, full, rich. This 76 version has a subtle roll off in the top end, which was pretty cool actually on certain types of instruments and recording. Some people will take off the low and the high pass filter. It was a broadcast thing that was built into the design. They'll remove that. It's also worth mentioning on these that they're tube units, and they used very expensive, high quality German tubes at the time. And I've heard some people say that these actually cost more than a Mercedes car at the time. They're so well built, and just the level of detail and the construction quality is it's phenomenal. Even after 30 years at Vintage King, I can't help but being just as excited I was in the beginning, being around all this amazing gear. It takes me back to our roots. If you're interested in anything you've seen today, or just want to talk gear, feel free to reach out to one of our audio consultants or vintageking.com. See you next time.